We are setting up and it's going live in a couple seconds. So if you can see us and hear us already, welcome to the Wife.Life. If you're coming onto this show live or on the replay, let us know. Say hey wives down in the comments. Today we've got an exciting show and I'm going to turn it over to the Other Wife Charity to do the introduction of today's show.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Wife.Life. We're so glad that you're here with us. Today, we're going to talk about a hot topic that we feel sorely needs addressing, and that topic is toxic femininity, how women are blocking their mate from finding them and or committing to them. And this is something that women are mostly doing without realizing it. So before we unpack it and get started, we just want to say that the Wife.Life is for all women, okay? It's not just women who are wives already. That's sort of a thing we get messaged about a lot. Can we participate if we're not a wife yet? Yes. And the Wife.Life stands for Women Intentional About Family and Entrepreneurship. So if you want to have some guidelines for the best outcomes, thank you for the water, baby. The best outcomes of your life, we are here to help guide you. So if you guys could please, before we get started, just take a second to share this episode onto your timeline. You would be helping so many other women who might be feeling sad and just clueless as to why they're having trouble finding or keeping a man, a quality man who adores them. That would be great. So before I pass the torch to Petra or Danielle to introduce themselves, I'll just say that I'm Charity Nicole and I'm your social selling siren. I've been married for 8 years. I just had our 8-year anniversary, and I teach network marketers and direct sellers how to get more friends, followers, and funds through Instagram. Yeah. Petra and Danielle, who wants to go next?
Yes, I was just sharing this over so I can welcome. My name is Danielle Morell, and I am a brand and business coach for service-based women entrepreneurs. And I am coming up on my 7th year of being married, and I'm coming up on my 5th year of being a full-time entrepreneur. So my passion is really modeling and showing women an alternative way to work that allows them to have the flexibility, freedom, finances to have fun times with their family and, be able to balance this modern lifestyle. So I'm really excited about today's topic about toxic femininity because it's something that I put out to my audience months ago. And it was interesting because a lot of the feedback was that it doesn't exist. If women are being toxic, then that they're taking our masculine traits. And so I definitely want to share kind of my thoughts on some of the things that I do see women doing that are toxic, and not just in relationships, but even just in this modern era, balancing, business and, passions, and also trying to balance the energy of men and being intentional about family and entrepreneurship, So I'm excited to get into it. I'm going to pass it over to Petra so she can do her introduction. Again, if you would like to join the conversation, do not hesitate to leave a comment. We're watching this, the comments as we're talking, so we'll be chiming in, and we love to hear your feedback. And if you don't agree with some of the things, we actually have not rehearsed this talk. We know that we have, our opinions about it, so we're all going to be experiencing our opinions for the first time. And so we're not looking for us to say this is the right or wrong way, or what we're saying is the way, right, ladies, wives, but we just want to begin the conversation so that we can be aware and accountable as women on what our role is and what we can master and improve. Would you say that's right, ladies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And my name is Petra and I'm the Queen of High Ticket Sales. And I've been married for 8 years, going on 9 years next month. And I've been a full-time entrepreneur since, 5 years now. So what I do is that I help service-based business owners to charge what they want to charge and get paid for it straight away. Because my thing is, and what we all believe in with the wives, that women, we need to and we should know how to create our own economies. All right. And, know how to ask for the sale. So that's exactly what I do. And today I'm super excited because this is going to be a very controversial topic, and things that we may actually be talking about. You may have seen them in yourself, I know that for me as a woman, I have been toxic in the past. Okay. And as we were deciding, to do this call today, it was like, okay, some of the things that I used to do, I recognize, but guess what? You can change. You don't have to live this way. So I'm glad that we're kind of shedding a light on it. And especially with the fact that so many of you that are watching and listening, you are entrepreneurs, or you may even be the breadwinner for your family. All right. And some of you may even be in really, really great jobs where you do earn more money than your husband or your partner. All right. However, when we're talking about this subject, it's about, okay, how can we shift from this whole toxic femininity into being the queens and the rubies, the person that is really supportive to her husband, because this toxicity is keeping so many women single, all right? And we don't want to do that, all right? So that's what we're talking about today. How is it that this toxicity is really keeping women single?
Yeah, and it's also destroying marriages too, because we've seen that over and over again, and we've all been victim to it. I definitely have, because me and Josh got separated for a period of time, and a huge part of that was toxic femininity and horrible like influences I had, telling me that I should be this way and I should be this way, but that were completely counterproductive to having a healthy marriage. And so I love, Petra, that you said, you can change. We can all change. We just have to decide right now that we want a better outcome. And I think it's important that when something is so controversial and polarizing as this topic, that when you're trying to figure out who's right, you look at who has had the best outcome of their life. Mm-hmm. So I would think that if you're looking at someone who has an opposite opinion to what we're going to talk about today, I encourage you to look at the fruits of their life and ask yourself, is that really the life that you want? Do you want to be alone and powerful, or do you want to be powerful with your spouse and making him powerful as well?
So why don't we address real quick and because like I said, I put this out there and just, ask the question to my audience, why aren't we talking about toxic femininity? A lot of responses that I received was that that's no such thing, that if a woman is being toxic, that just by nature, women aren't toxic, I guess. So can we back up and maybe share if there was a definition of what toxic femininity is, because it's not talked about and it's not as defined as toxic masculinity. Like if we were to say, what's toxic masculinity, we could say, oh, date rape culture, violence against women, power struggle, patriarchy. We have all these definitions, but when we say toxic femininity, it's like, what is that? Is that's not a thing, or, I've never heard of that, or that's impossible. So, and I just feel like the universe works in a yin and a yang, and there's, if you know what I mean, like one can't have all these negative traits and one is just the pure angel, and we're always the victims. And I think with women's empowerment, and that's why, and I'll come back to this. So maybe we'll just start defining it. Do you want to define it, Charity? And then I want to talk about my definition of a women's empowerment is truth telling and holding accountability and not always just saying, what I mean? Oh, we're doing great, or we're the boss, or, we're better than men, we're smarter, that's all we hear in women's empowerment. But I think women's empowerment is also important to hold women accountable so we can do better. And if we don't ever call women out and we always say we're right and we never do anything wrong, you know what I mean? So what is your definition, Charity?
Petra wrote a great definition of what toxic femininity is on our promo for the week, and it is the weaponization of female sexuality and or identity as a means to gain social power or status.
Right. And that's awesome, Petra, because that's cool that the definition really focused on sexual power, because even though we talk about breadwinning and there's power struggle of leadership in the household, you know what I mean? And the root definition comes from the sexual power, knowing, using your sexual power, because that's a feminine thing. That's one of our advantages, and all women are very clear about that from a very early age. You know what I mean? Like I how old were you, ladies, wives, when you realize, hey, if I'm a little bit more sexual, or I do this a certain way, I'm going to get a certain attention that men couldn't get away with, because that's not, what I'm saying, that's not our weakness.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna let Petra answer that one. I don't know.
Yeah, but she came out, you found the definition. So that's, I think, is a great definition, because I think it's a big part of what, I know that's not the only thing that defines toxic femininity, because we could talk about gossiping, we could talk about emotional responses versus logical responses, and using that as fact, which is very toxic femininity. We make decisions based on emotion versus logic, and then we consider that fact and make assumptions, and then we penalize men, for that, because we usually leave. So that there's other things other than sexual power, but I think that's one of the most prime examples, because we see it the most, because most women know it very soon and can use it the most. You know what I mean? Like, it's universal.
And Shapiro says facts don't care about your feelings, and I have to agree with him. And that sounds really harsh, but you're so right that a lot of the times that people, women, and especially sometimes men, but women, even men can have toxic femininity in a way where they're having these traits that are more feminine, but they're using them because they've sort of been conditioned by society too to be more emotional and not really think logically. Some men, not all men, most men are, you know what I'm saying? So this is sort of a weird dichotomy.
Right. Did you want to jump in, Petra?
Yeah. So when it comes to, especially because this subject is really about how toxic femininity is kind of preventing women from getting married. The aspect that I think is important, especially because the people that we are watching are entrepreneurs. All right. So when it comes to finding a mate, a lot of the time, we're told, well, we need to write this list. He has to be 6 foot. He has to be handsome. He has to make multi 6 figures. He has to have no children. He has to want to travel. All right. So a lot of the time, what I see in specific circles, and what I do see that women teach, some, prominent women teach, that a woman has to have a man that has got specific types of qualities in order for them to be an eligible partner. All right. So when it comes to toxic femininity, what we're talking about is a lot of the time you can kind of place these, a lot of the time when it comes to finding a mate is this, all right? Actually looking for a man that is literally the male version of you, right? So you have got all of these expectations that they must have. You've got this criteria that they must adhere to, and if they don't, all right, then you're gonna say, hey, well, I've got my standards. I'm not bending on these standards. I shouldn't have to compromise. But then what happens is, and especially when you do get to a certain age, like all of us here, we're over 30, I'm over 40 anyway. When you kind of have these requirements for a mate, what happens is that the dating pool gets so much smaller, where you can actually remain single for a long time. All right. And it's because of these kind of expectations that a lot of women do have, does unfortunately keep them single. So that's the aspects of toxic femininity that we're talking about, is really women thinking, living and being really, really pretentious, living off their beauty, thinking that the way they look and how much money they make and the body that they have is going to absolutely get a man to marry them, and also to stay married as well. And that is, that's toxic.
I got 2 examples of that. Sorry, go ahead. Do you want to go ahead, Danielle?
Well, yeah, and I just wanted to kind of talk about just the realistic of what the modern woman is facing in today. And we have to that's why I think entrepreneurship is such a great space and for women to pursue to really have this balance, because it also helps them in their dating pool. Because what's happening is women, are going to school at rapid rates now that we've wanted to get careers and we've entered college and we're dominating colleges at 51%. We're going into the marketplace and we're now taking over men's quote unquote spaces that they had dominated for centuries. Then we went and go work there. Now we're taking over that space by 51% of the workforce at traditional men jobs. So, and then in the next 10 years, we're going to be facing automation, which is going to, put a lot of men out of work. And men don't marry when they don't have money, especially because women only want to marry men who have money. So now we're having a situation where women were actually causing our own market and marriage market decline of, because we are now, that's why it's so important for women to get in entrepreneurship, because the reason why women cannot break glass ceilings is because they don't own any buildings. We went to go work when we decided we wanted to be like men, and that's toxic too. It's like, yeah, we're adapting, instead of creating our own lane, we're just doing what men do and say, oh, well, let's just go work where they work at a 9 to 5. When that was not created for women. That was created for men who had wives. So we needed to create our own economy, like you said, Petra, and that's why it's so important. The women who figured it out now, we have to be a light and a resource to show other women how it's done, because we have to get out of men's spaces. Now, there's going to be some industries where you can't, escape that, like hospitals, if you're a doctor. Yeah, there are obviously industries that if you go into that field, you're going to be in a man's space. And those are so few women anyways, because the truth is very few women make it to the top, because a lot of women don't want to get to the top of the CEO ladder because they don't want to sacrifice family and time, So it's not that women can't get to the top, is that they elected not. And you could say, well, that's a balance of family, and the husband, doesn't pick up his share fare, and, all that kind of stuff. So it's changing how the family is. And I think it's important for women to figure out our own way. You know what I mean? Entrepreneurship, we need our own economy so we can hire other women that work around our lifestyle. Like, we get paid in a high income business model. It doesn't matter how much time we spend. I have plenty of time to do kids and everything else. And my money is 3 times what I would ever make at a job. I'm trying to show that to other women, to say, hey, it's not them, is the way we're trying to do it. And if we're the smarter of the two genders, like we're screaming, how is this mind-boggling us that we haven't figured out, hey, we need to create our own economy. We need to get in a position where we can hire other women that can live this way. But beating men down and telling them they need to change the way that's not fair. That's what I mean. Men's biggest complaint right now is that they built everything, the infrastructure, the roads, the buildings. When you look around, men have figured, yes, they laid the groundwork, you know what I mean? So they're looking at us like, hey, wait a second, what have you ladies built? You know what I mean? Show, what do you have? Building mortar, show me what infrastructure you put together. You're just trying to take over ours. And now you're mad that there's not enough men making 6 figures. Well, that's why.
It's a really
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about some of those examples of, like, I knew this chick in high school when we were 15, and she had a list of at least 100 things. She had written every single thing down. She said, I'm not going to date anybody until they have all of these qualities. And even at 15, I was like, I don't think that's going to work out. I've got like 5 things on my list that are really important to me. So I think that's a really good thing to look out for, is keeping your goals in perspective when you're finding that man. And to go along with the whole, having a highfalutin job as a man, I knew someone who was dating someone who was a firefighter. So he made good money and he had his own house, and he was sort of looking for someone to get married to. He was in that place, but it wasn't good enough for her because he wasn't an entrepreneur, and he wasn't doing the things the way that she felt that he should. And I think that's a huge part of toxic femininity, is, like you said, just expecting to find a male version of you instead of appreciating men for what they are and what they value and what they have built for themselves. And you're like driving their self-esteem into the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and Petra, weren't you kind of saying you need to find somebody that's like you? If you're requiring a list, you need to be that list in some capacity. Like, what would that man require? You know, and are you that woman? See, a lot of women's check is off. They have a long list, but and I think this ties into the point you just made that I've, and I've realized this a lot about being in women's spaces, how unaware and unaccountable so many women are of their true nature. And once you discover that women have true nature of being emotional and considering that fact, making assumptions, and just not being able to master their own life. And I think the biggest thing is not understanding the power of inspiration. So women don't understand their true power, which the good part of them is being to women get men to do what they want them to do by inspiring them, not by nagging them, not by demanding, hey, if you don't do this, I'm cutting off sex. If you don't do this, I'm moving out. If you don't support my business, you suck as a husband. No, you've made about 10 bad business decisions before this one, and you came in with 20 grand of debt from your credit card. So don't expect him to just, sign off when you have a history of making poor decisions. But then you're going to blame him for not, but you don't want to reflect, well, why would somebody not willingly jump on board? What am I not doing to inspire? So I noticed that when I stopped nagging my husband or demanding things or, well, you do it too, or I'm busy just like you are, even though I'm on here surfing on Facebook and social media. He knows when we're goofing off on social media. You try, he ain't stupid. So it's like, and when I started inspiring me and being my best self and being on top of my game, he started being on top of his game without me even having to tell him. It's like, when I'm like, okay, I need a daily dozen list of the 12 things that I wanted to get done every day. And if I could get these 12 things done, my life is in control. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, one load of laundry. If I do one load a day, fold it, boom. You know what I mean? I, do to make sure I get dressed for the day, make sure, I pack the kids' lunch and pick out the clothes. And so he come home and he's like, oh, wow, like, you done it and everything. And see, the thing about entrepreneurship in the way I work is I'm not working 40 hours outside the home. So it doesn't, bother me as much, you know what I mean, that I have to, make sure that I'm on top of my game. I'm not exhausted. That's what women are like kind of stuck. They're exhausted from, you know what I mean? Because the way they work is not conducive for you to be able to flourish and self-care too, you know what I mean, and being on top of your game. But when you're on top of your game, that's when your spouse wants to be on top of their game. And it's an easy win. You didn't even have to yell your voice. You inspire them, and they feel like they came up with it on their own, not because you withheld something, you know what I mean, in punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just touching on, because we are going to be talking about sharing, okay, how can we move from the toxicity into being a loving wife or a woman that someone does actually want to marry and stay married to. I just want to share some examples of some things that are toxic feminine behavior, especially if you think about it in entrepreneurship and also in the workplace as well. When a woman does rise, all right, when a woman does rise in her income, in her influence, you really, really find that a lot of women don't really want to support. There's a lot of competing. There's a lot of talking about each other. Women don't want to support other women. All right. And, I've experienced this at work, and I've experienced it also as an entrepreneur as well. Another example is women using their bodies, women using their sexualities really as weapons. Now, especially if those of you that are watching and you're married as well. So what I want you to remind you is that the Wife Life, we talk about moral values when it comes to this show. So this show it's always based upon moral values. All right. So when it comes to if you're a wife and you're kind of withholding sex from your husband, that is also toxic. All right. If you're a woman and you have children,
it's counterproductive, honestly. Like, I'm here to tell you, I've been done both, and I'm here to say you get a whole lot more done. You know what I mean? When you just keep that up. He's like, you know what? it knocks the anger off. I don't know what it is, but when you withhold it is when the anger starts to build up, and then it goes from mad to worse to moving out. It's just like, if you just do that, because that's your quality time to share love and show love no matter what.
Absolutely.
And that's your husband's way of showing you love, honestly. And if you take, so I just say that too. I've just realized if you do it every day, you won't even be getting in arguments. How about that? I was
Not to mention a great stress reliever.
Because you ain't even trying to risk messing up the play.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else as well. If you are separated from your husbands or your boyfriend and you have children, withholding your child from your ex is completely toxic, obviously, unless there's abuse involved. But what I've come to realize is that there are so many women that force their expectations on their exes. If they don't live up to their certain standards, then they won't allow their children to see their own dad. And then what arises from that? Then you've got child alienation that arises from that. And then what happens is that then, especially if you've got a daughter and you're not going to be helping her with her relationship with men in the future. All right. So these types of behaviors are very, very toxic. And it's something that I want us all to really be aware of in the way that we're speaking and in our behaviors, because we have to think about the next generation. And if you're doing this, how is it going to be affecting your kids? All right. So, it's not a good idea. It's not great, to be using your children as bargaining tools with your ex and not allowing them to see them. Because what you have to think about is this. And so we're talking about, how toxicity is getting in the way of getting married. Well, look at this. You may be thinking, or some people may think, there's not a lot of men out there. Well, men don't want to commit. It's not the fact that they want to commit, that they don't want to commit. It's the fact that they don't want to get divorced. Because if you think about it, the law is always on our side, all right? Mm-hmm. If women get divorced their husbands, what women are entitled to? Child support, alimony, oh my God, all kinds of support from the government. And then the man's left with nothing because there's nothing in it for him. What's in it for him to get married? What's in it for him? So it's not that there's no men out there. It's just that men are very, very cautious to not want to be marrying someone who is toxic. All right.
I have a story about that too.
We made it easy for them too, because there's no one. We're taking away all the incentives to get married. Getting divorced is not in their favor. They don't get the benefits. They end up in homeless shelters. They have the highest suicide rate. We feel like because patriarchy is always quote unquote been in place, that we never need to talk about men's issues, although that they're obviously committing more crimes than ever, having more episodes in society, and nobody's really addressing what's going on out here. So you know what I mean? Like, tell us your story, Charity, about.
So two things. All right. So first thing is about the children. The second thing is about the alimony. Okay. So the first thing is my parents got separated when I was 3 years old, and they didn't end up getting divorced till I was 9. They were trying to work it out. But the great thing about that was that even though they weren't able to work out their marriage, my mom was always very adamant about him being involved in my life as much as possible. I talk to my dad on the phone still to this day, at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. And we text back and forth all the time. And when I was a kid, he would call almost every day. And he would come see me multiple times a week. It's very important. The law, I think, currently has it to where, they set the man up with like every other weekend or some crap like that. And that is not healthy. I think that's terrible. I think that a man should be involved in his child's life as much as he possibly can. And if you really love your children, you will make every effort you can to get along with each other so that your child can benefit from having loving parents. Look at Bruce Willis and Demi Moore and all that they've got going on. Like, I love watching how supportive they are of all their children, but that's one of the things. And the second thing is someone very close to me, I'm not going to say who because I don't want to like privacy, but they got married and they were married for about 8 years. When they got divorced, the judge just threw everything at the woman. So this person put his wife through nursing school throughout their entire marriage. She had nothing, basically. She had she had her apartment, her crappy job when they got married, and he put her through nursing school. She got a job making, $20 some an hour as a nurse. He lost his job the year that they got divorced, and he was making like close to $100K a year. He lost his job. He was only able to find part-time work because of, I guess, his age. That whole thing. When you're of a certain age, it's a little harder. And especially depending on if you have a factory job, it's not like some like specialized job, right? So anyway, the judge was like, sorry, you're going to have to pay alimony based on what you were making. He's like, I won't even be able to afford to live. She's like, sorry, I guess you're going to have to figure it out. So she wouldn't give him any grace. She just didn't care. She completely took her side on everything without even considering anything about his life.
So what is, and that's the thing, like, what is the incentive, especially if women are just all out for themselves, completely self-centric, completely, toxic in in their behaviors? Like, what's the incentive for them to get married?
Because the incentive is now that we are more sexually liberated, men, I believe, in the 40s, 50s, maybe before that was for different reasons, but, it was taboo to have children out of wedlock. It was taboo, and that, women just weren't as promiscuous, and if they were labeled as shame, which shame has disappeared, and there's been, and I do see some negativity of I'm not a shamer, but I do see how like holding a standard of what, so that our children can meet and exceed it, and not having a standard at all. It's like, men also, now we have so many women wanting to adopt how men operate, not having sex out of marriage. So men have been able to, now they don't have to get married for sex or having children, because we have some of the highest out of wedlock births, happening right now. And this is putting women at a disadvantage. And this is why I'm so passionate about talking about this, because this has a negative repercussion on women, how we work, how we live, and what the economy and how powerful we're going to be, and we're not going to be if we, our debt, we have more student loan debt here in the United States than men. We carry like 73% of the student loan debt, like 500 billion. Something so we're carrying a lot of debt. We're picking soft industries, we're not making as much as men, you having kids without being married, and the security, all of this is going to be something that, and again, with automation, we're going to have fewer men who are six-figure men. It's funny, women always say that we're the prize, and I do think women have inherent value. But when you look at supply and demand, I'm seeing, a supply of educated, successful women in a short supply of men who are 6 figures, 6 feet, and got a six-pack, like there's like only 6% of those, there's 60% of us and 6% of them. So who's really the prize? And I think that's when we enter, women's delusion. It's okay to be honest with ourselves. And women's empowerment is saying, hey, power is not taking it from men, but owning our shit and getting it right, so that we can inspire them to be their best self. But it's so easy for men not to be their best self when they can look back at us and say, well, you're not really your best self either, but we're so focused. We could just focus on ourselves. But when I just have like a couple points. So I did want to say that was the other incentive that we're taking away, because, going back to Petra using sexuality as a weapon, it's actually backfiring on us, because we're all out here now. Men are like, well, I don't even need to get married. It's too costly. It's too risky. And everything I wanted for marriage, I'm getting anyways without having to get married, which is sex anyway. So this is a win-win for me, and it's wreaking havoc on families, relationships, women's confidence. It's like that kind of thing. And then working with women, if you look, you can Google it, and study after study will show that women don't like having women bosses, so it's, it's interesting when we talk about the glass ceiling and why there's not so many women making a lot of money at the top, when human resources is a female dominated industry. You would think women would hire women, the department that hires people is a pink collar profession. but women don't hire women because women don't like to work with women as well. We're not honest about that. And it's because we have a competitive nature. We're always, thinking we don't have, we're working on having a collaboration type of spirit. And that's what I think is beautiful about the entrepreneurial space. But we even see it here, copying, competition, worrying about what the other girl is doing. It's so that is that, you know what I mean? Like, those are my points that I wanted to add to that.
I just burst out laughing because I love what you said, right? 666. Women want 6 figures, 6-pack.
That's what there's a whole gender war happening on YouTube right now. This is actually going on in real time, and I think the social media might be ahead of the curve. Definitely YouTube is ahead of the curve because men are getting in a space. They like YouTube. It's a more masculine platform. They like making videos, and they're spreading the message, on YouTube about this gender of that men are waking up. And they're calling out other men and calling them simps or guys who do anything for girls that look good, and they just open up, and it's making women's heads blow up. And so other guys are saying, hey guys, stop simping that's the term. Stop bending over backwards just because she's pretty, have some standards, because these women are now thinking they're like, and now, they have this, I need a prince mentality, and now women are starting to wonder, why am I not getting, going on dates? Why aren't guys pulling doors for me? They can't figure it out. They can't, and it's because men are talking, to each other about, hey, don't get married. Walk away from it. There's no incentive, you know what I mean? And it's because that's why I'm always like, hey, if you're a married woman and you want to see your single friends get married, be a great wife. Because what's happening is that you're slacking in your marriage, and your husband's telling his single buddies when they come to him. Because my husband just got his friend come to him like this past week and was like, I think this is my wife. I think she's the one. And my husband was like, well, I knew Danielle was the one the first time I saw her too. And he's like, okay, cool. But that's because now if I was not, peaceful in my marriage or figured out a way to do this, he would have told his friend, don't do it. Trust me, because when he was getting married to me, some people told him don't do it. I was like, don't listen to them. You know what I mean? Like, please keep your eye on the prize, right? Look at me. Look at me. Don't look at them. Look at me. You know what I mean? Don't listen to what they're saying. So you know what I'm saying? Like, that's, we have to also take accountability as well,
Danielle actually used a word called simp, right? But what I want to do, I want to explain what that word is, right? So I'm going to read it from the dictionary, okay? So this is what the dictionary says. And just to be assured, I don't use this type of language, but this is the definition of a simp, right? So simp, S-I-M-P, suckers idolizing mediocre pussy. All right.
I did not know that's what the acronym says.
Oh my God.
It's an acronym.
Wow. I just know that it's a negative connotation, and the guys are using it and they label other guys. So all the knights in shining armor, they're getting backlash like, hey, don't be nice to these girls. These girls are out here wrecking havoc. They have these blown up heads, or, dressing provocative everywhere they go. They're giving away the milk and want us to buy the cow. Don't do it. They're divorcing us at a 70% divorce rate. So the divorce is initiated by women at 70%, educated women by 90%. So women are initiating divorce. Now we can talk about the reasons why, and I think it has a lot to way we work and us carrying the burden of working outside the home and feeling resentful of having to cook, clean, have sex, and then keep his attention, and he's not doing this and he's not doing that. No, you need to change how you're doing things, because how you're doing things ain't working. You're smart. Figure it out. I figured it out, and if you don't follow us, that's the whole point. I'm trying to show you here what you need to do. Get smart on something that solves an expensive problem, so you can, you know what I mean? You don't have to spend a lot of time. Women need to be like that. Think a different way to work, because that's one of the contributing factors. Yes,
and this is why I just love the wife life, because we're talking about things that are happening now, real life. So just to give the definition of simp, what it means is basically it's suckers idolizing mediocre pussy. Basically, someone who gives redundant and over the top attention to women that are far less value than the attention or praise given. So usually the recipient of this praise is knowing of this and is taken full advantage knowing this fact. All right. So basically, this is what I was speaking about earlier, where we're talking about women using their sexuality and their sensuality as a thing, as toxic, all right, thinking that they can keep a man's attention just based on her beauty and their sexuality. But what we're going to talk about now, I know that Danielle started touching on it, but it's like, okay, so how do we keep a man, or how do we keep a husband? How do we stay married? Like, what are the traits that we need to have, or what should we be doing them? Because a lot of people, a lot of women, they want to be a wife, but they don't know the responsibilities that it actually involves. You know, just like, you know, we talk about this often, and we talk about the fact that we are wives, we have children, all right, and we run a household, and you know, we still have time to cook, clean, make love to our men. So we're talking about what are the attributes should we as women have that's gonna allow us to attract a potential husband, and also to keep a husband as well. And remember, as you're watching, and as you're watching live, or if you're watching the replay, I want you to make sure that you join in the conversation. Okay, post your takeaways. Let us know, can you see yourself in some of this? I know that I absolutely see myself, you know, in some of this. Can you? Let us have an open conversation about this. All right, so let's talk about some of the traits that women should have, and especially when we talk biblically now, it talks about the wife being the helpmeet to the man. So men and women, we're equal, but we're absolutely different.
Before you get into the nitty gritty of that, I think it's important that we have to start with why. You have to ask yourself, why do I even want to get married? What would be the reason? Okay, so if you want somebody who's a male version of you, like, why? Like, you can go get a dog that would just adore you, you know, like, you know, and give you praise and adoration. But like, why do I want to get married? Because I want someone to love me. Okay, well, that's not that hard to find, someone who thinks you're attractive and who thinks you're the bee's knees when you first meet. But when you actually get into a relationship and you start building a life together, that's going to fade away really quickly if you have expectations and you're not trying to be a partnership, and you don't understand what it means to run a household together, and you don't have roles that you want to fill and roles that he wants to fill. So right. That makes sense.
Absolutely. So it's like, so we're talking about now, so women that can hold your husband down, or your man down. So a woman, you know, we are to be compassionate, you know, and provide emotional support and emotional help to our husband, you know, not putting him down, praising, encouraging him, not using any kind of manipulative behavior or manipulative language, you know. Yeah. And especially when it comes to marriage, you know, we've all three of us have been married for a pretty long time, and we've had very low lows in our marriages, and also highs as well. But a wife has to have endurance through those painful times. Even if some of you that are listening, even if you're separated right now, you know, Charity was open to say, you know what, she has been separated. But look, they're still together, just recently celebrated their anniversary. So a wife is to have endurance in terms of going through the pain, and understanding that this is only just for a season, it's only for a moment. All right. And compromise is big in marriages. You know, you can't always have your own way. Understanding when to choose your battles, knowing when to say, you know, something, there's bigger fish to fry, you know. There's something that in my marriage where I'm thinking, okay, does this need to be an argument? Is this even worth arguing about? Let's just compromise, and let's just deal with it. All right. What about some of the things that you think that we all need?
Well, so here I do have a list. I'm gonna run through them real quick. These are just some of the things that I think, you know, characteristics that women should have, you know what I mean? They want to attract a mate. One is discernment right away. I mean, I think a lot of women, you know, it is a skill set to have discernment, being able to, you know, be able to read people in this situation. I hear stories all the time where I'm like, where was this woman thinking? Like, there was red flags. You know, we have to make better decisions as women and take accountability. If we're having all these children out of marriage and we're getting our heart ran over, we need to say, you know, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it can't always be everybody else's fault. We have a pattern, and we need to have better decision making, and that, you know, will make us more attractive to the type of mate that balance to us. Is when we make good decisions, we become a more attractive mate, because people want to be in relationships with people who, you know, they can trust or can make logical decisions and are not always getting them in a dead end road. So even in the dating and that stage, it's like when you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're not sure, don't say you can do it. Or, you know, just be somebody that's going to, you know, have more wins than losses all the time. I don't want to be with somebody who's, I have all these dreams, but I never win any of them. You know what I mean? So it's already on that type of tip. Problem solving, you know, being resourceful. I feel like, you know, I think Petra, she'll tell you the story when her husband, the reason she got into entrepreneurship is that he was driving a truck and fell asleep, and he almost, you know, got in a car accident, a truck accident, I believe, right? And so you were like, I've got to figure this out. Like, I've got to figure another way to, like, this isn't working. And you did. You figured it out. You set intentions and figured it out. Which is the same thing for me. It's like, I knew that I didn't want to blame my husband and be a damsel in distress when our money was short and a day late. Like, I didn't want to do that. I knew that was going to ruin our marriage. I'm like worried all the time, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I was like, no, I don't want to live. I can, if I want to live this certain way, I don't need to, you know, I can figure this out, and I can do it in a way that I don't feel like, oh, I'm working so hard and you're not bringing enough in and we're both working the same. No, I'm going to do it in less time, so it don't even bother me. Like, oh, okay, you're going to do that or whatever. Bills paid, I don't give a darn. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting me a massage. What? You know, so I just think, like, being resourceful is a great thing. Like, always knowing things are figure outable, and that, you know what I mean? That's for sure. I think that's all I had. And, you know, just praying too. You know, when I wanted to change my husband, I just started, you know, writing down, I have a husband who's madly in love with me. You know, our relationship is great. I always have the energy to have sex. You know, I'm always ready. Trust me. I'm writing this down. And then all of a sudden my life just started, you know, rearranging, where it's like, oh, wow, you know, this is really manifesting. So it's like, even at the basic level, if you feel without any tools, that's a great place to start, is, you know, believing, you know what I mean, what you want, you know what I mean? So that's what I would definitely say. Be resourceful, be a problem solver, make good decisions, be inspirational, have discernment. One of the best decisions you'll ever make is the person you will choose to marry and have children with, for sure, if you're bringing in children. That's the most important. So we need to take it with more seriousness, you know what I mean? Because these are life altering decisions. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, and also being a woman that has a good character as well, because being someone that has a good character, it adds to your husband's reputation as well. Right? We've got to be a woman of substance, good character, humility, you know, all of this stuff, and also someone who knows how to encourage and to praise her man, instead of just really like what Danielle says, blaming and you know, putting him down and all that kind of thing as well. And I think it's good as well to this is such a great conversation. Okay. And I think Charity, do you want to chime in and close us for today?
Sure. I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much good stuff that we talked about. I don't even know how to close it, but I would just say that if you feel like you have gone so far to the toxic feminine side and you're just like, you know what, you guys are right, and I don't even know how, like, to get out of this. Again, it just starts with the decision that you want to, and that you can see the truth, and you're willing to admit that you've been partaking in things that are not good for you, not good for anyone around you, not good for your husband. And that's okay. We all make mistakes. And the first step is to decide, you know what, I'm going to do things differently from here on out. get some help, get a good book, like a marriage book, and just start The Love Dare would be a great one that I would recommend. Kiara Butler in the comments said that there's a documentary called Toxic Femininity, or sorry, it's called The Red Pill.
Red Pill, yes.
So that's there. And I haven't looked into that, but I'm sure that's a good one. And you could go to marriage counseling together and kind of just talk about, you know what, babe, I want to do things differently from now on. I love you and I want to learn how to respect you. I'm not quite sure how to do that, but I want to learn. And you could get some help in that way. So just take the first step. If you want help, ideas will come to you and you'll feel divinely inspired to do that. But things will get better from here on out.
Yeah, and reach out to us as well, if you do need support in that area, because we're not perfect. We've been there, we're still learning, and especially this conversation, it's been really brilliant because it's really opened me up to Petra. Who were you? Who were you? Right? And knowing that we all have loving, committed, wonderful husbands, and this is what the wife life is about. All right, this is what the wife life is about. It's literally showing you as women that you can be intentional about your family, and you can be intentional about being an entrepreneur as well. And to understand that wealth and marriage goes together, right? And knowing that as a woman, you are worth far more than rubies, and I just want to really understand that you are completely irreplaceable in your marriage, in your business. And those of you that are looking, maybe one day we'll even talk about how to even meet someone. Maybe we will. We'll talk about it. I met my husband at church. Oh yeah, we spoke about this last week, didn't we? About how we met our husbands.
Go and watch that. How we manifested our husbands. It's a good one.
Go watch that.
Oh, one other thing, and two, there's a movie I want to recommend too. When we were separated, that both was like, it was the catalyst. When we watched it separately, but like it just changed our whole perspective immediately after watching it. It was called Fireproof. And if you watch that movie with an open heart and you're willing to receive it, you'll be like, and you'll want to make your marriage your top priority. Right. Oh, Kiara said this show is life-changing. That's amazing.
Oh, that is amazing.
Oh, yes. Kiara is gorgeous. She is marriage-minded and marriage material. She's definitely a woman who is intentional about family and entrepreneurship. She is invested in her personal development. I know her personally, and her business. She's a yoga instructor. She does the coolest thing. She's traveling, does yoga. So check out Kiara if you want to, learn some yoga and do it in a very feminine way. She's very sexy and feminine when she does her yoga. She does it in a very unique way. So
I want to give a shout out to Charisse too and say hi, Charisse. She's been here in the comments.
And I think, I'm so glad that Kiara checked it out, and, share this over, Kiara, with all your friends and all your women that you know, because again, it's cool whoever gives advice from whatever standpoint. You could be not married, divorced, what have you. I think it's something to be said that we have survived marriage at this point, and that we know a conviction in our heart that we've made the decision that we know we're going to be married forever, because we know that our family, it says family and entrepreneurship, which means family comes before entrepreneurship, so they mean a lot and they go together. But, family comes first, because I do think it's something to set a legacy for your kids to see, that your family can make decisions and commitments and stick with it. That sets a standard for your family name when you have family members who are like, and I'm not saying being in bad relationships, abusive, just to say, I made it to 50 years. No, it's no type of prize like that. But again, discernment, picking out the right person. You've got to take accountability for that first and foremost. If you find yourself in repeated bad situations, it's not the guy. It's you have the lens you are looking at what you think you're worth. You're attracting what you think you're worth, and you're accepting what you so. That's first and foremost. So I'm saying, in a situation where your spouse is loving and whatever, it's something to be able to. And in today's society, we don't value that. You know what I mean? That commitment, what it means to say, I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to do my best to work this out so I can set a standard for my children. So we're not quitters. We're not every 2-3 years we changed our mind. because when we stand by our word. Darn it, that's what we are, the Morels. Okay, so anyhow, this has been a great conversation. Thank you, everyone that has joined us live or on the replay. Please share this over. Make sure you like the page. Go to TheWife.Life. So you just type in TheWife.Life. That'll take you over to our YouTube channel. We're uploading all of these over there. So if you're catching this over on YouTube, you can come like us on Facebook. Okay, The Wife Life Official. And just subscribe everywhere you can find us so you never miss us. And we will see you next Sunday, same time, 1 p.m. Petra, say your time since you know where you are.
Okay, if you're in the UK, 6 p.m. every Sunday evening.
And if you guys have any topic ideas that you want us to talk about or Jeff, please feel free to message us or leave them in the comments because we
have a lot of people who just spiked on their way out. If you're on here now, you're catching us on the outro, please go back and watch this because I think we all are happy that we had this conversation and we all became a little bit more enlightened on some things that we definitely didn't know and becoming aware. This is empowering so that we're not naive. Right? And that we're not living in lava land and that men need some respect too. And we don't need to crush our little hearts. Okay. All right. We need to be compassionate and be nurturing and be smart. You can do all of that. All right.
Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.